Hello and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. Here, we dive into the cutting-edge worlds of prototyping, aerospace, rapid manufacturing, mass customization, and beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. In today's episode, I get to chat with Thibault Corens, the CTO at Presso. Presso has created a pioneering all-in-one robotic dry cleaning machine. This quick, eco-friendly alternative to traditional dry cleaning services caters to industries featuring rapid garment turnaround. Now let's hop in. Hey Thibault, welcome into the podcast. Thank you for joining me. Super excited to chat with you today. I've spent a lot of time on your website over the past few days. As a mechanical engineer by trade, I am completely in awe of this machine. I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was going through every little detail about how it works. I was reading up a little bit about you as well, and you have a really interesting history. Originally from Belgium, moved to the US. Can you give me kind of your story and how maybe your background influenced you and the story of starting Presso, I guess?
Well, thanks for having me, Jordan. So I'm originally from Belgium, born and raised. I kind of grew up on a manufacturing plant background. My family has always been in high-speed manufacturing, machine making. So it made me, from being very small, just like build a bunch of stuff, break a bunch of stuff down, rebuild it. It's the good old stuff, but very hands-on. Definitely a big hardware component in there.
Yep.
Moved to the United States for college. I went to Purdue. Just a great experience. I met my current co-founder there, Nishant. But like him, as an international student, first time having to do our own laundry. The ironing, the messing up of the garments, the shrinkage, the color fading, all the good stuff. I've had my fair share. And then, it's, senior year, I was supposed to go back home, join the family business, but I decided to move to China with Nishant. We got a few prototypes up and running, and we were lucky enough to get our first investment, let's say. So we decided to move that forward. And then we moved to China. We moved to China, to Shenzhen, Huaqiang Bay area, where, the world's largest electronic market. We were there just hustling every day for like 8 to 10 months, just iterating on our product, iterating on our core tech, really like hunkering down, finding some vendors, getting the ball rolling on the actual product, making what we wanted to just replace our laundry into something more sustainable, which is now really focused around the pressing of the garment and the body odor removal of the garment. And then we took that 5.5 years ago here back when we moved to Atlanta.
Awesome.
That's kind of how it started, but really from a need, the need of the struggles with laundry myself.
Solving your own personal challenges. That's very similar to the founding story of ProtoCase, actually. It a little bit different of a setting. That wasn't laundry based, but it was a challenge that our co-founders were facing in their positions, and they set out to solve it. So it is the origin story of a lot of great businesses. What was it like living in China? What did you learn in that environment? I can imagine very different from your environment growing up in Belgium, very different from Purdue. What was that like?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's very different for sure, right? Like growing up in Belgium, at least what I remember and growing up, it was all about like super high quality standards, like tremendously high. When I moved to the States, it was all about just opportunities and building ideas. But then when I moved to China, it was truly about the speed at which you can innovate with hardware. That was just a different level, right? It's like people that have been there, that have lived there, truly understand. But the speed at which they can operate and customize hardware, it's it's a completely different level than most of us are used to in the United States here. So then, especially when coming back from China, that's the first thing we try to do is replicate with the limited resources we have. Like, how can we get to a place where we don't forego our time on innovation that we still want to continue doing while obviously being with our customers, knowing what's possible when we were in China.
Absolutely. What specific skills do you think did you learn that were enabling you when you came back to increase the velocity of your innovation? What things did you learn specifically?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say being financially savvy enough
Okay.
to make quick um, purchasing decisions
Hmm.
while validating quite methodologically, let's call it,
Hmm.
um, where, just we had a limited budget, we had a limited time, we needed to innovate something that didn't exist yet.
Hmm.
Um, so I think the biggest thing that I personally got from it is like getting really good at deciding what's the next step to iterate on or
Hmm.
what's the next step to test on, even though there's tens of thousands of problems we were solving at the same time. And it's, what's the next one, because you don't want to do everything at once because then you're going to get stuck. And um, so being very, yeah, fast, quick decision making, and yeah, based on obviously the data you have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it resonates with me from the perspective of what we try to do here, and kind of the core tenets surrounding our internal projects. But it's very much around that idea of decreasing latency, which is what I
Yeah.
hear in that, and that oftentimes, you know, the cost of innovation is in the latency that is accrued when you're not moving fast enough, when you're not making quick iterations. We aim to help solve that problem, but I think that it's great that that was something that you learned on your own and you figured out how valuable that was. In terms of the actual product, can you give me a rundown of the Presso machine as it exists now, and what you learned along the product development cycle for that machine? Because it's incredibly capable
Mhm.
from my perspective. I would love to have one sitting in my laundry room at home. I can tell you that. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, can you walk me through that?
of course. So, no background in laundry equipment whatsoever, right? So a lot of things to figure out there. Um, but we have a pressure based steam system that is basically the heart of the machine. We use some robotic stretching in there. We have some air systems as well. So a little bit of a mix between a few different systems, but again with the goal of pressing quality within like 5 minutes. That's standard. And then body odor removal. So we also focus heavily on our chemical that's really able to distract your body odor from your garments. Um, on the actual product side, we have, we like to compare ourselves to the early stages of a microwave, right? Where the first microwave was just this big, big room
Yeah.
that only like certain industries could afford in the beginning. But then just like that, we're like innovating continuously. All our the form factor of certain modules are starting to come down. Like we work very module based so that we can continuously iterate and adjust, and then eventually, we will be in people's homes and part of their closets, part of their bathroom wall, whatever you can imagine, um, with the idea of like 60 to 90 seconds cycles, right?
Wow.
Like true like microwave for your garment, right? Like on demand, like premium garment care is how I envision it. Um, and we have a lot of parts, probably a lot of unnecessary parts too. It's really like first you build for functionality,
Yep.
no
Absolutely.
matter the cost, no matter the size, no matter how clunky it is. Does it work? Great. And then you start working from there on out, right? So we're now in the stages where functionally the product is just killing it, and then now it's like the stage of, okay, now we got to start thinking, we're getting a lot of demand, so it's like, okay, we got to make more of these. Well,
Hmm.
not the way we've been building it. So let's redesign it real quick. Let's make it so that it's a lot more cost effective, a lot easier for just manufacturability's sake, right? So we can actually get the product out there at a more reasonable cost than what we're building them for today. And then after that, of course, we have the form factor, we have further features that we want to implement. Just an array of things.
No, that's great. I was actually going to ask you that if I'd be able to get that in my home someday. So thank you for answering that for me. The prospect of that is a relief to me, but I would imagine my significant other would be really happy, because I'd be lying if I said that she didn't handle most of that. I did want to ask, you mentioned in there that you have no background in laundry, somewhat in jest. I think that's an important point to stick on, though, for maybe some of our listeners who are out there and maybe they have an idea in a field that they really don't know much about. Obviously, you had background in manufacturing from your childhood. You had a formal education in technology, so you understand how things worked. But would you give any advice to some of our listeners who may be innovative in nature, but are maybe roadblocked by the prospect of not knowing, or the unknown of something that they're thinking about? Because I think what you've done is beautiful in that, you guys said, whatever, I don't know about laundry, but I can figure it out. But what advice would you give somebody?
I'm very happy you touched base on that, because it is exactly because we didn't know that we decided to tackle this.
Yeah.
That we're able to be where we are today. Like,
Yep.
if I had known everything that I know today from the get-go, there's no way I would have started this.
Yep.
Right? Like, nobody would, right? And I think it's the fact that you don't know anything is the one that makes you drive to just take one step after another, and the figuring it out as you go attitude and that's exactly what you need, especially if you're already so pre-treated with data, let's call it.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Where
it.
you're like,
Yep.
there's just no way this is gonna work, or there's no way, what about this, and you start worrying about all these scenarios and other things that might in fact at one point are things that you're gonna hit. But it's truly like just step by step, constantly iterating, constantly adjusting, risk management. That's all it is.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. There is a liberation in some ignorance, and allows you to remove any preconceptions that you might have had, and just be creative. So I think that's beautiful. You were also talking about manufacturability and scaling, and moving this unit as it currently exists into a more cost-effective form factor, the development of future units. Can you maybe speak a little bit about what you've learned in terms of manufacturability and designing for manufacturing, and how that will impact your strategy in the future for those prospective products?
Yeah. So from early on, we've always made a conscious effort to work with off-the-shelf parts as much as we could.
Yep.
I would say like 70% of our parts are parts that already exist that we just had to adjust, or slightly adjust, or request for adjustment from manufacturers for us to be able to actually implement them. And then everything else is just your 3D printer or CNC'd, or obviously our custom frame and those kind of things. But those are easy changes moving forward. And specifically because of that, as we look at a manufacturability perspective, it's a lot easier to just adjust your design for a cost basis, for how our techs are assembling them, and of course like usability of the product. And like I said earlier slightly, it's we're very module based, where we're very we're a startup, right? We don't have all the resources in the world, and we have to be very conscious about what are the parts of the machine we're going to be working on at a time. But we don't want to work on something and that just sitting in the dust until everything else falls together. So we want to make sure that whatever has been built on, we can immediately implement, right? So that's a crucial factor.
Yeah, that it makes total sense. I imagine too. The other question I wanted to ask you on that was, you've learned a lot about how you innovate quickly and the importance of that velocity. Also, now you're facing these, new challenges with scalability, as you've kind of discussed what factors are at play there. What do you look for specifically in partners or suppliers that you work with, I guess, in order to enable both of those things? So enable your flexibility and innovative culture, I guess, whilst also allowing for a product that becomes more manufacturable and more scalable.
Yeah. So we have quite a bit of parts right now,
Mm-hmm.
but with all our suppliers, we try and have somewhat of a good relationship. Of course, like we understand, we're a young company. We're not gonna be asking for tens of thousands of parts of something specific, especially early stage, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to you know take them within the story, just like you would trying to fundraise. Because they need to understand that we're here for the long run, right? This is not just a one and done. um, and we will require quite a bit of adjustments more than probably some of their bigger partners, right? So how
Yeah.
does it stay enticing? Of course, we understand that speed comes at a premium, right? Especially here in the states, but it's something that we're willing to pay because we're not willing to forego time for innovation. Um, and especially again coming from China, knowing what's possible, you'll do anything to get your time back because that's by far the most valuable.
Absolutely. I would imagine too, as Presso grows and you bring on new people, you start developing new products. The challenge of creating a good workplace culture also appears. Can you talk to me about what the culture is like at Presso and what work you and your team do to foster a good culture?
Yeah. Um, my co-founder and I have been very has been our number one priority is company culture, in the sense where we have again the ignorance of never having worked anywhere else like full-time post graduation role, right? Like we
Yep.
went straight from college into this. um, with that comes the beauty of ignorance, where we can make the culture whatever we want. If it feels right, we'll do it that way. We don't like red tape, we don't like the drama. We try to be, we have our core values like most companies, but it's truly about just the teamwork, positivity. We spend a lot of time here at work, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that other people want to build this with us is something we don't take lightly. And so I mean, I for sure enjoy coming to work. That's also the kind of environment I hear from other people. And it's always interesting talking about your own culture as a founder, because you want to make this great, but I also don't like boasting. So it's a trade-off. um, but no, it's definitely something that's quite important to us.
Yeah, it sounds actually quite similar to your. I think it's similar to your innovative designs in that, again, you didn't really know laundry, so you could be as creative as you wanted and solve whatever problems you want. There's no restrictions. In the same way with your culture, you can create whatever culture you want because there's no restrictions. There's no existing infrastructure that you have to abide by. I did want to ask. So you talk about your long term vision for the company, all these great ideas. Um, what do you think the most immediate goal is? Like if you had to put yourself a year from now
Yeah.
in your shoes, where would you like to be?
Yeah. So we are very focused right now on the redesign of our product for manufacturability
Mm.
to really start scaling. So we have really the last 4 years, we've been really focused on a mix between, of course, getting our product off the ground, making sure functionally it's operational, that in combination with our cleaning liquids, and then making sure as many people as possible could use the machine. And
Yep.
then from a business side, of course, like make sure we start getting orders, and people are excited when to reorder. Um, and then now it's a matter of how do we get the demand satisfied. And we know we've been getting ready to start growing, and the first step obviously is a redesign of our most expensive parts.
Yep.
Which is normal. And then, of course, also setting up a manufacturing location, like wherever that might be. These are all things that we're going to figure out in the upcoming year.
Nice. Very exciting. Before we end the discussion today, is there anything that you would like to promote? Anything anybody should know about that may be listening?
Yeah, well, of course, Jordan, I appreciate you and the whole team there have been a crucial part for us being able to innovate fast, which is always good to have suppliers like that. And then, if you're interested, we're always hiring, and we need product engineers, especially now that we're going to be growing quite heavily for both this product as well as our in-home version that's coming. We need people, so we always need people.
Nice. So if anybody out there is listening, they're innovative, they're creative, looking for a good workplace culture, I would assume go on to Presso's website and check them out. I'm sure that there's not too many places better to work. So thank you very much, Thibault, for joining us. I've really enjoyed our discussion, and I'm excited to see what the future holds and to get one of these machines in my own home someday.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Thibault. Bye-bye.